Hi there, students. Finger pointing. Okay, finger pointing is the assignation of blame. In a situation where something goes wrong, there is finger pointing. You are to blame. So finger pointing, there's the usual finger pointing when mistakes are made. In a company, whenever mistakes are made, there is finger pointing because nobody wants to accept the responsibility. So the Conservatives recently got beaten massively in the election. In an election, and now there will be finger pointing. Yeah, there will be finger pointing to decide whose responsibility it is, whose responsibility it was. Rishi's put up his hand and said it's my fault, but I think the finger pointing probably goes further back than that. So when something goes wrong, you should analyze what went wrong and try and avoid it in the future. It shouldn't be an exercise in finger pointing. Finger pointing is harmful, but in our society, finger pointing is the first thing people do when things go wrong. Finger pointing is very unhelpful. It's not useful to say you did it. It's useful to say why you did it, why this result happened, what happened. Yeah, and then there are recriminations and finger pointing. Yeah, so finger pointing is not the most helpful of things. Okay, so finger pointing is the assignation of blame, blaming somebody for something, the imputation of blame, and very often finger pointing is finding a scapegoat. It's finding somebody to throw under the bus. Yeah, it's the making of accusations, the assigning of blame. Let's see, this comes from the verb to point your finger at. So they pointed the finger of blame at me. They always blame me. To accuse, to assign blame to. And then finger pointing is this activity. Yeah? When people start pointing the finger at each other and accusing each other of being responsible, that's finger pointing. So the finger pointing is openly accusing somebody, apportioning the blame, yeah, blackening each other's name. So the second something goes wrong, then, well, it's not my fault, it's never my fault, it's always somebody else's fault. And yeah, in our society there is far too much finger pointing. Because finger pointing is just saying you're bad, you're a bad person. It's much better to work out what actually happened. Because very often finger pointing is unfair accusations. Yeah, the boss tells me to do it and then accuses me of doing it. Yeah, and saying, well, as you did this, it all went wrong. And very often finger pointing goes backwards and forwards. I point at you, you point at him, he points back at me. And this finger pointing, it's perhaps like it in our society where clearly there is a problem with the environment. There's clearly a problem with global warming, and everybody is finger pointing. Well, it's your fault that it's happening. It's his fault that it's happening. But actually, it's all our faults that it's happening. Yeah, but it's much easier to say no, it's just somebody else's fault, and that's finger pointing, assigning blame for harmful policy, for unwise decisions. Yeah, and this is very often just to deflect blame from yourself. Yeah, that I'm not responsibility, and that's the idea of it. The finger pointing to just say it wasn't you. Yeah, it's to apportion blame, to lay the blame at somebody's door, to single somebody out. Yeah, it's the blame game. Okay, so please can we get beyond the finger pointing and actually be constructive? Maybe fights about money start with finger pointing. You did this, but you did that. Yeah. Okay, so finger pointing, it's just saying, who is responsible, not why it happened. So formality, finger pointing, formality. I think I'm going to give it a 4 in formality, maybe a 4.5. Yeah, you get a 4.5. Use it informally, use it semi-formal conversation, semi-formal writing, but stop there. And finger pointing, particularly common in business. So, finger pointing.